Hey guys!
Welcome back to the B Family Films DIY Challenge.
Okay, so yesterday Cara got you all set up for success on your phone. Today is going to be all about shooting.
I'm going to start you off with some tips on the process of shooting, and then Chris is going to jump in and walk you through the entire shoot that we did on our phone so that you can see everything in action.
All right, let's get to it.
All right, hey guys, so today is all about shooting. So again, we're going to throw a lot of information at you. As long as you're shooting, documenting, that's all that matters. So go out there and shoot today and just have fun. All of that being said, we're going to give you as much information as we can to set you up for success. Basically, the main thing you need to know about shooting is that you're trying to tell a story. You want a beginning, middle, and end kind of thing, but you don't have to be literal. Not everything has to be shot. You're creating something for your family. If you miss like a small part of it, it's not that big of a deal. It's something that we all know how to fill in the blanks. We're going to start off, I'm going to give you a couple of like shot ideas, ways to make your shots a little more interesting. Again, as long as you're pointing the camera at the kids and recording it, you're fine. But just so you know a few shot ideas, I'm going to give you a few that we use. I'm going to use my phone since that's what we're using. The first one is just a pan, and that's basically where you're just moving the phone across as you're recording. So all of these movements you want to be steady and smooth. If they're in slow motion, it's going to be a lot smoother than if they're in regular speed. Even in regular speed, you can keep it pretty smooth while you pan across. So that's a pan. There's also a reveal where if the kids are playing on the bed, you could start from below the bed and just kind of slowly move up to where they come into the frame. That would be a reveal. One of my favorite shots to do is when something's going on, like we made cookies for our video. With Bobby mixing cookies, you can do an over the top where you're pointing it down and you're getting everything that's happening in the bowl with their little hands mixing. Even kids playing on the ground, playing with something, that would be a good one to do. Also a good one is I kind of showed y'all yesterday when we were playing with the phone how you can move your focus forward and backwards in the plane. That's called rack focusing. So basically you could start on an object in the foreground, which is going to be closer to you. Start that in focus, and then you can rack focus into the kids playing in the background. That's a more technical shot, so that one might take some practice to get used to, but if you can pull it off, that's one of the best. It's a showstopper. You can also do a reveal to the side, so if we do this for opening scenes a lot. If you're coming into a room and there's a doorway, you can pan in to where that doorway kind of wipes across the screen to kind of open something. You can also go the opposite way and pan out to where that doorway kind of closes off the scene. And like I was talking about earlier with rack focusing, anytime you can have anything in the foreground, even if you don't rack focus where that's in focus and then you go to the kids, if you just leave it blurry and shoot through to the kids, that always looks great. Having anything in your foreground, shooting through railing. You could go outside and shoot through a window and to see those kids. Just get creative with your shots. It doesn't have to be crazy, but try things. Just try new things that you wouldn't normally do. Just to see how they look. That's usually when the best stuff comes out. So now I want to talk to you a little bit about B-roll. B-roll is going to be those little bits of video that goes between scenes or to help show time passing. It doesn't necessarily have anybody in it. It's just like objects that are in the room that you're shooting. It helps when you have multiple shots from the same angle to put B-roll between them so that it's not jarring when you cut together your story. We always say you can never have enough B-roll. Shoot all the B-roll you can. Especially for us, because in family films, we can't go back and shoot B-roll. You can. If you don't have enough B-roll for your film when you're editing it together, you can always go shoot in the other room where y'all shot and get more B-roll. B-roll is one of my favorite things to shoot too, because you have time. There's nobody in it, so you have time to try out different shots on all the stuff in the room. All right, so another thing that I wanted to talk to y'all about is just your clip length. For the type of film that we're creating, you want to make sure that your clips are short. Unless you're trying to get sound in your clips, like the kids laughing or something like that, you want to keep your clips to around 3 to 5 seconds, and even that's kind of long because we're going to be stringing them together to make one large film, and it's better to keep yourself moving. So if you take a little clip here and then you move to the other side and take another little clip and then you move to a different angle and take another little clip, that's going to be more interesting in your timeline than if you're just sitting in one spot taking one long clip. The only exception to that is going to be if you're trying to get sound. When you move over to the regular speed and you're pulling in sound, that's when you want to stay put as much as possible. So yeah, keep your shot short. It'll just make it for easier editing later. You won't have to comb through so much in each clip to find the part that you want. One more thing I wanted to talk about was slow motion versus regular speed. We talked a little bit yesterday about the frame rates and how you switch from slow motion to regular speed. Now I'm going to tell you why you would switch from slow motion to regular speed. So regular is going to be when you're trying to get sound. You want to hear your kids talking. You want to hear them playing. You want to hear them laughing. That's the best time to shoot regular speed because you're gonna get to hear it. When you're shooting in slow motion, everything's gonna sound like this. So you can't really use that. Chris was laughing at me. So you can't really use that. Slow motion is great for emphasizing sweet moments, though. If you have a toddler with tiny hands stirring cookies, that's beautiful in slow motion. Things like that. Things you want to really hone in on and remember. Those are the best moments for being slow motion. Our films typically have a ton of slow motion. You can do opposite of that. You can shoot everything in regular speed and then just tone in on those slow-mo areas that you'd really want people to pay attention to. That's a beautiful way of doing it. We would love to see that in some of y'all's films. So just kind of think about that as you're shooting, what you're wanting to listen to, what you're wanting people to focus in on, and that's when you would switch back and forth. Again, I can't emphasize this enough. It doesn't matter if you switch back and forth. It doesn't matter what you do. Just shoot. That's all we want you to do is document while you're stuck at home. Just document. All right, and the last few things that I want to talk to you about are just a couple of best practices. So I talked to you about foreground, trying to keep things in the foreground. Also use the lighting to your advantage. If you have beautiful sunlight coming in from a window, put people in it. Allow the shadows to fall out. Play with the light. If you have the blinds down and open, those blind lines could be beautiful on something. Just play with the light a little bit and try out different things with that. Also, when you're shooting, get on their level. The best tip I can give to somebody who doesn't really know how to shoot is to make sure your camera is on the level of the people that you're shooting. If you're shooting down, unless you're doing the over-the-top kind of thing, if you're shooting down at somebody constantly, it's usually not very flattering, just the same way that shooting up at somebody is not ever very flattering. So get on their level. This camera right now is on my level. That's why it looks so good. Get on the person's level. That's when you're going to get the best shots. Other than that, I think that's pretty much all the tips I can give you. Again, it doesn't matter if you use a single one of these. Just pull out your camera and shoot something for us. Now I'm going to send it over to Chris and let him just fill your brain with all the cool things that he did for our film. And then tomorrow, we're going to talk a little bit about editing. So I'm going to let Chris get into the shooting part of it, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Bye!
All right, thanks, Cara. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so before we get into shooting, first I want to say that it does not matter what you're shooting. You don't have to plan anything. Anything you want to remember later. The film we're going to do today is of Cara and Bobby baking cookies, and that's something they do often, and there's a lot of cute moments that are very quintessential to Bobby at this age because she likes to push the chair over so she can stand up and be high enough on the counter, and she likes to help, and so, of course, all that stuff makes this a perfect choice for a little keepsake. The second thing that I want to say before we get in is just to make sure all the stuff I'm going to throw at you is just guidelines. It's how we shoot, how we think about it. We want to give you everything from the way that we shoot so that they can look as good as possible. But by no means do you have to follow all the rules. And I say this because I don't want it to cripple you getting a moment because you're so worried about, trying to switch settings or, worrying about lighting or any of the stuff we say. So the only thing that's really important out of everything I'm going to say in this video today is to try your best to tell the story. So try and think from the beginning, if you're going to film someone baking cookies, that maybe you want to show them getting prepared. Maybe you want to show them, mixing the cookies, obviously, and then putting them on the pan, and then maybe at the end, just a way to close out the story so that, you have a beginning, middle, and an end. Okay, so the first thing that I do is I'm going to get my settings, or basically I just like to check. I do this on a real camera too. If I know I'm going into this shot wanting to capture the audio or I want it to be shot at regular speed, then I'll make sure my settings are ready to go. But again, and I know Cara said this, you don't have to shoot in any other, if you just want to shoot everything at 60 frames or slow-mo, you will be able to view it at regular speed, and we can edit it to where it just won't be quite as cinematic. And again, remember all these settings, like if you're trying to be absolutely perfect, if you want to shoot slow-mo at 60 frames, that will be good slow-mo. If you want to shoot good regular speed, 24 is going to look a little bit better than if you make 60 regular speed. Alright, so now that you got everything ready to go on your camera, you got, your lights set the way, everything, you know what you're going to shoot, let's get right into shooting. I'm going to use the example, obviously, that we shot of Cara and Bobby making cookies, and I'm going to kind of walk you through a little bit of like my thought process on how and why I shoot what shots I shot, I guess. I'm not going to go through every single clip that I shot, but at least try and give you a good idea of basically the best practices of how we shoot. And this is how we do family films with our cameras and everything. It basically is just a little formula that we apply through the whole entire shoot. So Cara and Bobby are going to make cookies. So I know right off the bat I want to use a shot to introduce the scene. Meaning I want to get something that's really wide that shows like the room, that shows what they're doing, them together. It sets the scene, right? It tells you where you are, who's in it, what they're doing, which in our case is going to be Bobby and Cara gathering ingredients in our kitchen. And then part of our formula is we always try for each moment to get a couple of different angles so that we have some variety when we're editing. So starting with that wide, I'm going to run up really quick before they finish gathering ingredients and try and get Cara turning on the oven, and then a close-up shot of Bobby pulling her chair up, because that's specific to my child and something that she always does when they're baking or cooking. She wants to pull the table chair up so she can stand on it and reach the counter. So I'm thinking about that as I'm shooting. I think the most important part to remember here is this trying to get different angles. So I may be shooting from Cara's left side when I'm doing one shot with the two of them in it, and then I'll walk around like 180 degrees from where I was standing and shoot back the other way to just kind of give some variety. You want to try your best to avoid what we call jump cuts. And what I mean is if you stand in the same spot and you film and you start and stop clips, it can kind of, sometimes when you edit them together, it can look like they just jump across the screen. One way to avoid that and make time flow a little bit more smoothly is to just change from where you're shooting. You don't have to move completely to the other side of the room. Even just changing a couple of feet to one side, or going from close up to a wider shot, or maybe a medium shot like halfway in between. Another thing I'd like you to think about while you're shooting is capturing the moments and basically the things you want to remember. In my case, my daughter is making cookies. I'm trying to think about things like her hands or her feet, or the fact that she's standing on a chair in the kitchen, her curly hair, just those things that you want to remember. So on our shoot, whenever they got to where they were mixing in the mixer, I got a few shots of the KitchenAid mixer, but then I knew that was my chance to go and get some shots of some B-roll around the kitchen. Bobby was digging into the chocolate chips and was probably eating too many. But at one point, Cara leans in and asks her for some. And so I realized right away this was going to be a moment that was going to be cute, because Bobby was going to feed Cara some chocolate morsels. So I stayed for that and made sure I got some clips of them being adorable. And then as a bonus, I also got a little adorable hug that they did there at the end. So it's kind of another one of those moments when you just make sure you don't run away too fast and try your best to just like read the situation and what's going on and don't think too much about settings. And even though I'm talking about wide and medium and close up and changing your angle, it's really more important that while you're shooting that you're paying attention to what you're shooting and that you're thinking about what's going on. That's more important over worrying about B-roll or slow-mo or any of the other things I said. So the last thing that I'll say is basically at this point, since I've got a lot of stuff of cookies going and from different angles, and I tried to think about, being creative with my shots and adding movement to them, I'm going to start thinking about how the film's going to end, which since I know it's cookies, this is very easy in my case, that eventually they're going to put them in the oven. Once they come out of the oven, they're probably going to eat one. I want to make sure I get a shot of that and kind of use that to close out my film. And in our case, I made sure to get a few close-ups. And what I actually did was, because usually my closing shot I like to do something wide, and I like to use this as an opportunity to kind of pull the focus away, or what I should say is pull it out of focus as I'm closing the shot. It's just something that we like to do creatively. That's pretty much it. At this point, if there's any other B-roll I think I wanted to get but didn't get a chance, I may run at that point and go and grab it really quick. But that's the end of your film. That's everything you need to do. I know we say this a lot, and I've said it a lot at this point, but try your best not to overthink it. You're actually going to do a lot better of a job if you just go with the flow, just do what you can, especially if you've never done anything like this before. There's a lot of things to think about, and it's really easy to get caught up on settings, composition, and just everything. In the end, when you go to watch this later, what you're going to care most about is not how many lights you did or didn't have on. You want to hear the voices, you want to see the faces, you want to remember, and this is why we say that your house doesn't matter if it's messy or if you're still renovating, or when you see this 20 years from now, you're going to actually appreciate all of those things. You're going to say, oh my gosh, look how thin I was, even though you may be thinking you're not thin. Or you're going to be saying, oh my gosh, remember when the kitchen used to be that color? It's really important that you just do your best to shoot it as it lies and then edit it in the best way you can later, and then you'll be happy with it. And you'll get better. If this is something you want to do more and more, as you make more of these, you will get better. It will come more natural. You'll be able to start to figure out like a style that you like and way you like to shoot things, and then it gets way easier. All right, that's all for today. I'll see you guys tomorrow when we're gonna edit all this stuff together and make a film out of it. All right, bye guys.